When we think of love, we often imagine it as a safe haven, a place of warmth, intimacy, and belonging. The story we carry, whether from fairy tales, films, or cultural narratives, tells us that when two people fall in love, the struggle ends, the insecurities dissolve, and what follows is certainty. But the truth is far more complex, far more fragile, and far more revealing. Love, especially deep love, is not only about closeness, it is also about fear. This is the paradox that lives at the heart of intimacy. When someone feels deeply in love, they are simultaneously drawn into closeness and pushed into vulnerability. The more they allow themselves to love, the more they expose themselves to the possibility of loss. The more they lean in, the more they recognize the risk of dependence. It is not uncommon, therefore, that when a woman feels the intensity of her emotions, when she feels the closeness growing stronger, she also feels the fear of what might happen if she surrenders fully. Fear does not mean lack of love. In fact, it often means the opposite. Fear emerges precisely because the love is real, because the stakes are high. When the heart is deeply invested, every word, every silence, every gesture carries weight. She begins to notice how much you matter, and in recognizing this, she is suddenly confronted with her own fragility. The very idea that you could walk away, change, or withdraw becomes almost unbearable. And so, to protect herself, she may ignore you, retreat, or create distance. Imagine closeness as a spotlight. The brighter it shines, the more it reveals. When someone steps into this light, all of their insecurities, their wounds, their longings, and their fears become visible. For a woman who is deeply in love, the closeness of that connection brings to the surface old questions. Am I enough? Will I be abandoned? Will my needs overwhelm him? Will loving too much make me lose myself? These are not questions she asks out loud, but they echo silently within her, shaping her behavior in ways that may appear contradictory. It is often in the moments of greatest intimacy that people feel the most exposed. To be deeply in love is to be seen, not just in one's strengths but also in one's weaknesses, in the tender places that are rarely shared with others. Closeness carries the promise of safety, but it also carries the terror of being truly known, and when the fear of being known collides with the fear of being left, ignoring you can become a strategy. It is a way of stepping out of the light, of dimming the intensity so she can breathe again. Think of it as a dance. On one side there is the pull of closeness, the longing to merge, to be understood, to be cherished. On the other side there is the push of fear, the instinct to protect, to retreat, to hold on to autonomy. Both forces exist at the same time, creating a rhythm of approach and withdrawal. It is not a sign of indifference, but rather the complexity of navigating intimacy. For many women, especially when the emotions are profound, this oscillation between closeness and fear is not a weakness but a way to survive the very power of love. There is also the fear of surrender. To love deeply often means surrendering control. It means opening one's heart without guarantee. And for some, that surrender feels unsafe. Ignoring, delaying responses, or creating silence can be a way of holding on to a sense of control when the emotional tide feels too strong. She may love you intensely, but to protect herself from being consumed, she creates distance. At the same time, fear is not always about you as a partner. Sometimes it is about history. Past experiences of betrayal, abandonment, or disappointment can resurface in the presence of new love. The intensity of current emotions stirs up the memory of past pain, even if the two are not connected. A woman may ignore you not because of what you have done, but because deep love awakens the ghosts of what has been. In this way, love is both an embrace of the present and a confrontation with the past. This duality, closeness and fear, creates tension, but it also creates depth. Without fear, love would be shallow, casual, something that asks little of us. It is precisely because we risk something, because we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that love takes on meaning. The fear is not a flaw in the connection, it is the price of caring deeply. To ignore someone in moments of love is not necessarily to withdraw affection, but rather to manage the weight of what that affection demands. Closeness, then, is not a simple path forward, it is a mirror. It reflects back not only our desire, but also our insecurities. It shows us how much we long to be held, but also how much we fear being left. For a woman in deep love, ignoring you may be her way of stepping back from that mirror when the reflection feels too raw, too intense, too vulnerable to face all at once, and so love becomes a paradox. The closer she feels, the more she fears, the more she loves, the more she risks. Closeness awakens connection, but it also awakens the fear of loss, rejection, dependence, and surrender. To ignore in those moments is not the absence of love, it is the proof of how powerful love truly is. Silence is often misunderstood. We are quick to see it as absence, as rejection, as a lack of care, but silence is rarely empty. In love, silence can be full of meaning, layered with emotions too complex to translate into words. For many women who are deeply in love, silence is not about indifference, but about protection. Protection of themselves, protection of the relationship, and sometimes protection of the very love they hold. When a woman falls in love deeply, her inner world expands, emotions become heightened, every gesture matters more, every word carries greater weight. This intensity can be overwhelming, and silence becomes a refuge. It is a way to step back from the flood of feelings, to contain what feels too vast to immediately share. Instead of spilling everything out and risking misunderstanding, she chooses silence as a form of holding, as a way of keeping her most vulnerable emotions safe until she can make sense of them. Protection through silence often begins with the fear of exposure. Love, at its core, requires revealing oneself. It asks us to show not only our strengths but also our fragilities, our insecurities, our doubts. To be silent is to guard those intimate parts of the self from being too quickly exposed. A woman may choose silence because she senses that if she were to reveal everything she feels in that moment, the intensity might frighten you, or worse, leave her feeling too dependent. Silence then becomes a way of managing the vulnerability that love awakens. There is also a protective function for the relationship itself. Words once spoken cannot be unsaid. In moments of heightened emotion, in moments when love feels both intoxicating and terrifying, silence can prevent the eruption of words that could wound. To ignore, to withhold, to retreat into quiet is sometimes less about turning away from you and more about preserving what is fragile between you. By choosing silence, she avoids speaking from a place of fear. She avoids saying something that could fracture the very intimacy she longs to preserve. We must also recognize that silence is not a void, it is communication. A woman's silence can say, "I need time." It can say, "I am afraid." It can say, "I care so much that I must step back to protect this." Silence holds layers of meaning that are often overlooked because we are trained to value words, to equate speaking with truth. Yet in the dynamics of deep love, silence can often hold a truer expression of the inner struggle than words hastily spoken. Silence is also tied to the fear of loss of self. Love, when it is profound, can create a sense of merging, of dissolving boundaries, of becoming one with the other. While this merging can be intoxicating, it can also feel dangerous. To love deeply is to risk losing the contours of the self, to risk giving so much that there is little left untouched. A woman may protect herself from this by withdrawing into silence, by creating distance that allows her to breathe, to remain anchored in her individuality even while she is swept into connection. There are moments too when silence is about testing safety. She may ask herself, "Can I be loved even when I am not constantly giving? Can I be held in absence as much as in presence?" Silence becomes a way to see if the love she receives is resilient enough to withstand space, if it is mature enough to hold ambiguity. By ignoring or withdrawing, she is not always pushing you away. Sometimes she is seeing whether the relationship can bear the weight of distance without collapsing. We often think that when love is strong, communication should be constant, that affection should be uninterrupted, but true intimacy is not built on relentless closeness. It is built on the capacity to hold both presence and absence, both words and silence. Silence can function as a reset, a pause that allows the relationship to sustain itself without burning too quickly. In this way, silence protects the rhythm of love, preventing it from consuming itself in its own fire. Cultural expectations also shape how silence is perceived. Many women have been taught to guard their emotions, to not appear too eager, to not give too much too quickly. Silence becomes a protective strategy, not only for the heart but also for the image of self-sufficiency. She may love you deeply, but silence allows her to protect the dignity of pacing, to not expose herself to the risk of being judged as too dependent or too vulnerable. Silence here is not rejection, it is preservation of pride, preservation of balance. At the same time, silence is not always conscious, it can be instinctual, almost automatic. When love feels overwhelming, the nervous system responds with withdrawal. Just as one might step back from a flame that burns too brightly, she steps back into quiet as a way of regulating the intensity of feeling. It is a bodily wisdom, a form of emotional self-care, where silence shields her from becoming engulfed by emotions that feel too big to handle in the moment. There is also the silence of longing. Sometimes, when a woman ignores you, it is not because she feels less, but because she feels too much. Silence allows her to sit with her desire, to contain it, to not let it spill out in ways that make her feel powerless. It is protection against the vulnerability of showing need too openly. Silence, in this sense, is both a shield and a testament to the depth of her love. It is the proof that she cares so much she must guard it carefully. Silence, therefore, is not the enemy of love. It is one of its paradoxical expressions. Where words may falter, silence speaks. Where presence may overwhelm, absence protects. In the dance of intimacy, silence is not the opposite of connection. It is often the very space in which connection is made safe. Every deep love story carries with it a hidden undercurrent, the risk that comes with allowing someone else into the most intimate corners of your life. Love, when it is profound, is never without danger. It brings the possibility of joy, connection and belonging, but it also awakens the fear of loss, the fear of dependence, the fear of surrendering control. For many women, when they find themselves falling deeply in
in love, it is not only the beauty of intimacy they encounter, but also the looming awareness of risk. The risk of deep love is not abstract. It is felt in the body, in the heart, in the everyday gestures of connection. The moment she realizes that you matter to her, that your presence carries weight, she also realizes what it would mean if you were gone. This awareness does not make her love less, it makes her love more carefully, sometimes even more cautiously. Ignoring you, withdrawing, or pulling back can be her way of managing this risk, of not letting herself be swallowed whole by the vulnerability that comes with needing you. Dependence is one of the greatest risks love awakens. To need another person is to give them power, the power to comfort, but also the power to hurt. In a world that often teaches women to be independent, to protect themselves, to never rely too fully on someone else, the act of depending on a partner can feel both radical and dangerous. When she feels herself becoming attached, when she notices that her happiness begins to intertwine with your presence, fear can creep in. What if he changes? What if he leaves? What if this need makes me weak? To cope with these questions, she may retreat into silence or distance, ignoring you not because she feels less, but because she feels too much. Another dimension of risk lies in the possibility of rejection. To open one's heart deeply is to give another person the ability to wound it. Even when there are no signs of betrayal or abandonment, the fear lives on as a shadow. A woman who loves intensely may imagine scenarios of loss, not because she doubts you, but because her love has made her vulnerable to outcomes she cannot control. The more she loves, the more she risks devastation, and that risk can make her cautious, guarded, or even distant in moments when she actually desires closeness the most. There is also the risk of losing oneself. Deep love blurs boundaries. It invites merging, union, the sense of two becoming one. While this is intoxicating, it can also feel threatening. A woman may ask herself, who will I be if I give all of myself away? What parts of me will I lose if I surrender completely? This fear is not about a lack of love, but about the instinct to preserve individuality within intimacy. Ignoring you, stepping back, or creating silence can be her way of holding on to her own identity, even as she navigates the closeness of love. The risk of deep love is also tied to history. Every woman carries within her a personal archive of experiences, times she has loved before, times she has been disappointed, times she has been hurt. When she falls in love again, these memories do not disappear, they reawaken. The intensity of present emotions can stir old wounds, reminding her of betrayals, losses, or heartbreaks she thought she had left behind. Even if you are not the source of those past pains, her love for you can reanimate them. And so the risk is not only about what could happen in the future, it is about what has already happened, and the fear of repeating it. Control is another layer of risk. Love demands surrender, a letting go of certainty. For someone who values stability and self-mastery, this surrender can feel destabilizing. To be deeply in love means no longer being entirely in control of your own emotions. It means that someone else's words, actions, or silences can change the rhythm of your day. For a woman who experiences this intensity, ignoring you can be a way to reclaim a sense of control, to remind herself that she can create boundaries even in the midst of overwhelming attachment. There is also a societal dimension to this risk. Many women are raised with contradictory messages. Be independent, but also be loving. Protect yourself, but also open yourself fully. Do not need too much, but make sure to give everything. These conflicting expectations make deep love even more risky because no matter what choice is made, closeness or distance, there is a fear of being judged, of being seen as too much or too little. Silence therefore becomes a way of negotiating these contradictions, of finding temporary safety and not choosing either extreme. The risk of deep love is perhaps most visible in the tension between hope and fear. Hope says, this love could last, it could grow, it could bring joy and fulfillment. Fear whispers, this love could end, it could break, it could leave scars. Both voices live side by side, and when the fear grows louder, a woman may choose withdrawal, not as a denial of hope but as protection from its potential betrayal. Her ignoring you may not be a reflection of doubt in you, but of the sheer enormity of what is at stake. Risk is what gives love its depth. Without risk, love would be safe, predictable, manageable, but it would also be shallow. It is precisely because deep love carries the possibility of loss that it matters so much, that it transforms us, that it forces us to confront our own limits and vulnerabilities. For many women, the act of ignoring in moments of love is not a rejection of intimacy, but a recognition of how precarious it can feel, how much risk it demands, how much courage it requires to continue opening in the face of uncertainty. In love, closeness often feels like the ultimate goal. We long for the moments of togetherness, for the warmth of being understood, for the intimacy of being fully seen. Yet what many people overlook is that love also requires distance. Space is not the absence of connection, but the very element that restores balance to it. For a woman deeply in love, moments of ignoring, of pulling away, of creating silence, are not always signs of disinterest, but strategies to preserve the equilibrium of her inner world. Space allows her to breathe when closeness feels overwhelming, and it allows the relationship to maintain its vitality rather than collapse under the weight of constant intensity. When emotions run high, the natural instinct can be to draw nearer, to merge, to seek reassurance in closeness. But deep love amplifies everything. It heightens joy, it intensifies longing, and it magnifies fear. Without space, this intensity can feel like too much, For some women, creating distance becomes a way to manage these emotions, to step back and regulate themselves before re-entering the connection. Ignoring you then is not about pushing you away, but about recalibrating, about finding balance between her desire for closeness and her need for autonomy. Space protects the self within love. In the heat of passion, it is easy to lose track of boundaries, to forget where one person ends and the other begins. While merging can feel intoxicating, it can also be destabilizing. A woman may sense that if she remains constantly close, she risks losing touch with her own identity, her own rhythms, her own inner voice. By creating space, she reclaims her sense of individuality. This restoration of self is not a rejection of intimacy, but an affirmation that love thrives best when both partners remain whole. There is a rhythm to intimacy that mirrors the rhythm of breath. We inhale closeness, and we exhale distance. To remain in one state too long, only inhaling or only exhaling would suffocate us. Similarly, a relationship without space becomes stifling, while a relationship without closeness becomes cold. Women who ignore in moments of deep love are often honoring this rhythm, consciously or unconsciously. They are stepping into the exhale, trusting that love does not disappear in silence but gathers strength in its pauses. Space also serves as a form of emotional regulation. Love stirs vulnerability, and vulnerability awakens old wounds. In the rush of passion, past fears and insecurities may surface, fears of abandonment, of betrayal, of not being enough. These emotions can feel overwhelming, and in order not to project them onto the relationship, she may step back into silence. Space becomes her way of metabolizing those fears privately, of soothing herself before returning to you. In this way, ignoring is not avoidance, it is a form of care, a way of protecting the relationship from the turbulence of unprocessed emotions. There is also a creative dimension to space. Closeness gives comfort, but distance gives perspective. When a woman allows herself distance, she gains the ability to see the relationship, not only from within, but also from the outside. She can reflect, reassess, and reorient herself. This perspective helps her maintain clarity about what she feels, what she needs, and what she desires. Space restores balance by preventing her from being swept away blindly by emotion. It allows love to be chosen consciously, not simply consumed passively. For many women, space is also tied to desire. Desire does not thrive in constant proximity. Desire needs distance to breathe, to imagine, to long. In the paradox of intimacy, we crave closeness, but our passion is fueled by separation. When she ignores you, when she steps back, she may unconsciously be protecting the erotic charge of the relationship. By allowing herself to miss you, to imagine you, to long for you, she restores the balance between intimacy and mystery. Without space, love risks becoming only comfort, losing the spark that made it exciting in the first place. Space further restores balance in power. In relationships, power is not fixed, it shifts, flows and recalibrates constantly. When one partner gives too much or leans too heavily, the other may instinctively create distance to restore equilibrium. Ignoring, then, can be less about withholding love and more about re-establishing fairness, ensuring that neither partner is consumed by the other's needs. A woman deeply in love may use space to remind both herself and you that love flourishes in mutuality, not dependency. We must also consider the role of silence within space. Silence is often the companion of distance, and though it may feel unsettling, it is rarely meaningless. Silence gives her the chance to listen inwardly, to hear her own thoughts and emotions without the constant noise of interaction. It allows her to center herself, to re-anchor before re-engaging. This silence does not mean absence, it means restoration. Within the quiet, she gathers the strength to return with more clarity, more presence, more groundedness. Cultural expectations, too, shape the need for space. Many women are raised to prioritize connection, to nurture, to be available. But deep inside, there is also a longing for autonomy, for moments that belong solely to the self. Space allows her to honor both needs without betraying either. She can be loving without being consumed, devoted without erasing herself. Ignoring you in this context is not a dismissal but a reclamation of the inner balance between giving and keeping, between merging and standing apart. In the dance of love, space is not a disruption of intimacy but its companion. It creates the contrast that makes closeness meaningful. Without space, love would lose its texture, becoming suffocating rather than sustaining. For a woman deeply in love, stepping back, ignoring, or creating silence is a way of maintaining this essential balance, ensuring that intimacy remains alive, rather than exhausting, vibrant rather than overwhelming, chosen rather than obligatory. Love has often been described as a journey, a bond, a union, yet perhaps the most fitting metaphor for deep love is a dance. It moves with rhythm, with tension, with pauses, with closeness and separation. It requires both partners to step forward and step back, to lead and to follow, to listen not only with their ears but with their entire bodies. Love, when it is profound, mirrors this rhythm. It is not about staying perpetually close, nor about remaining endlessly distant. It is about the interplay of both, about the dynamic movement between presence and absence, between intimacy and autonomy. When a woman ignores you even as she loves you deeply, it is part of this dance. The withdrawal is not necessarily a rejection, but a step back that gives shape to the movement. If both dancers were to lean in without pause, the rhythm would collapse. The beauty of the dance comes from the alternation, the closeness that builds tension, and the distance that restores balance. To understand this is to realize that love is not static harmony, but dynamic interplay. At the heart of the dance of love lies the tension between desire and safety. Desire thrives in distance, in longing, in the space between. Safety thrives in closeness, in reassurance, in familiarity. Both are essential, but they are rarely found in equal measure at the same time. A woman may crave the security of your presence, yet simultaneously long for the spark that comes from mystery, from not knowing, from imagining. Her silence, her ignoring, her withdrawal may be her way of keeping this rhythm alive, creating enough space for desire to remain vibrant while still holding on to the safety of connection. The dance also embodies the push and pull of autonomy and togetherness. In every deep love there is the question, how much of myself do I give, and how much of myself do I keep? Too much closeness can blur boundaries, making individuality dissolve into the relationship. Too much distance can create coldness, making intimacy feel unreachable. The dance exists to keep both alive. By stepping back, by ignoring in moments of intensity, a woman preserves her autonomy without abandoning the relationship. She asserts her selfhood, her independence, her inner world, and then returns, bringing back renewed energy, perspective and desire. Timing is crucial in dance, and timing is equally crucial in love. A step taken too early or too late disrupts the flow. The silences and withdrawals that feel confusing are often part of this timing. When she retreats, she is not always leaving the dance floor. Sometimes she is pausing, waiting for the right rhythm to return, waiting for the moment when her next step will align with yours. Love is not a constant rush forward. It is a choreography of movement and stillness, where silence has as much importance as speech. In this dance, vulnerability and strength move side by side. To step close, to lean in, requires courage. To step back, to create space, also requires courage. For a woman in deep love, ignoring you can be both a sign of her vulnerability and her strength. Vulnerability, because her withdrawal often emerges from fear. Fear of being too exposed, too dependent, too consumed. Strength, because she chooses to regulate herself rather than lose herself in the intensity of emotion. The dance is not about avoiding these fears, but about moving with them, allowing both closeness and distance to coexist without canceling each other. The dance of love also mirrors the body's natural rhythms. Just as we need both waking and resting, action and pause, love needs both intimacy and separation. If closeness is constant, it loses its meaning. It becomes suffocating, predictable, taken for granted. The alternation between the two keeps love alive. When a woman ignores you, when she steps back, she is honoring this rhythm, consciously or unconsciously. She is ensuring that the closeness you share does not become routine, but remains something that is longed for, cherished, and renewed. Desire itself is fueled by this dance. In the stillness of absence, imagination awakens. She thinks of you, remembers you, longs for you. This longing makes the return to closeness more powerful. If she were always present, if she never created distance, desire would have no space to breathe. Love would be reduced to comfort without fire. The dance preserves the spark by allowing moments of uncertainty, by letting the unknown mingle with the known. Ignoring you at times can be her way of protecting this delicate balance, of ensuring that love remains not only secure but also alive with passion. Another element of the dance is unpredictability. Dances are never perfectly linear. There are turns, improvisations, steps that surprise even the dancers themselves. Love too contains this element of unpredictability. A woman deeply in love may not always understand why she withdraws, why she becomes silent, why she ignores. The movement is not always rational. It is emotional, instinctual, sometimes even unconscious. Yet within this unpredictability lies vitality. Love that is entirely predictable loses its spark, while love that allows for mystery keeps both partners awake to one another.
The dance also requires attunement. Each partner must sense the other's movement, adjust, respond, and sometimes yield. When she steps back, she is not necessarily abandoning the dance but inviting you to adjust your rhythm, to respond not with panic or pursuit, but with steadiness, patience, and presence. Just as in dance, where one partner's pause does not end the performance but shifts its flow, her silence is not the end of connection but a change in its form. The dance continues even in stillness. The metaphor of dance also highlights that love is never about perfection. No dancer moves flawlessly without ever misstepping. The beauty lies in the recovery, in the way two partners find their way back to rhythm after a stumble. When she withdraws, it may feel like a misstep, a disruption of harmony. But within the dance of love, these disruptions are not failures. They are invitations to rediscover the rhythm, to deepen the connection, to learn how to move together in more flexible and resilient ways. The dance of love is also intergenerational. The steps we take are shaped by the dances we have witnessed before, our parents, our families, our cultures. A woman's withdrawal in love may not come only from the present moment, but from the dances she has observed in the past. If she grew up watching closeness overwhelm individuality, she may instinctively step back to preserve herself. If she witnessed abandonment, she may create distance to preempt the pain of loss. Her ignoring then is not just her own choreography, but part of a larger dance passed down through memory and experience. What makes the dance of love so powerful is that it is never one-sided. Even when one partner steps back, the other is still moving. The rhythm continues, shaped by both presences. Love is not about one partner always leading, the other always following. It is about a constant negotiation of movement, where roles shift, where both partners at different times step forward, step back, pause, and return. When she ignores you, when she creates distance, she is not ending the dance but playing her part in it, trusting that you too will hold the rhythm, that you will understand the silence as part of the music rather than as its absence. In the end, the dance of love is not about erasing fear, nor about achieving unbroken closeness. It is about moving with both. It is about recognizing that intimacy is alive precisely because it contains distance, that desire endures precisely because it contains absence, that love deepens precisely because it allows for both steps toward and steps away. When we look closely, the moments when a woman ignores you in deep love are not contradictions but revelations. Love is never a straight line. It is closeness entwined with fear. It is silence chosen as protection. It is the constant awareness of risk. It is the space that restores balance, and it is the dance between presence and absence. What appears like withdrawal is often the very thing that allows love to survive its own intensity. To love deeply is to walk a delicate path where vulnerability meets courage, where longing meets fear, where silence carries more weight than words, and where distance creates the conditions for desire to remain alive. When she seems to step back, she is not always leaving the connection. She may be preserving it, protecting it, and ensuring that love does not suffocate under its own power. The truth is that love, in its most profound form, is not about constant reassurance or uninterrupted closeness. It is about understanding the complexity of another's inner world, about honoring the pauses as much as the embraces, and about recognizing that ignoring you at times may be the very proof of how much you matter. Would you like me to also restructure the entire 5-keynote script into one flowing long-form end, so it reads like a complete, continuous talk ready for YouTube or a podcast?